I would like to actually advocate you to pursue art, adults and children alike, if for nothing else, at least for the sake of that relaxation that it provides, right? And it could be sport also. I think it has to be a mix of sport and art, both. When we think of music, we don't really think of math and vice versa, but the connections are all over the place. In general, anything that lends itself naturally to synthesis and analysis has a mathematical background to it, right? So if you can break a system into its component pieces and then reassemble it without losing too much information, that means that there is something hidden behind it which can be encapsulated, formalized, expressed in mathematical terms. That's a clue in general. Subjects like music, which on the surface of it doesn't seem like math, but really very, very close to the surface. If you scratch the surface, there is plenty math. To understand the fundamentals is actually to start to appreciate the nuances. So a lot of the math that I show here, the practicality is not simply to, okay, let's use this later in engineering devices, or let's use this later to make better music. Most of it is to, let's try and see what makes it so beautiful. So that is an aesthetic component to mathematics, which is very automatically revealed in music. It is really simple. There is one tone hole that you blow into, and then optionally a number of holes on the body. If all the holes are closed, it basically corresponds to the open pipe that you see up there. It's a mathematical representation of a flute, basically a pipe that is open on both ends, right? The tone hole is one end that is open, even though it is strictly not sawn here. It's open enough here that you can consider this to be open, like to the atmosphere. Now with all the holes here closed, the other end is basically this, right? So this is the length of the basic lowest vibrating column. This is the length of the flute. Okay. Based on this length, now we can start doing some basic math. Right. We can predict what will be the frequency. So my first foray into the math of this is like this note. It's called the fundamental. The lowest note that this flute can take is the fundamental. And the subsequent notes that you see are basically harmonic progressions of the fundamental. Okay. Now I'm going to show you what this means to you. If I blow with some more energy, the sound starts sounding like this. Some more energy. So there are a number of sounds that kind of come out of it depending on how hard I play. One of the challenges of the flute is to know how much air you have to release to get the sound that you want to get. Otherwise it will sound a little muddled and muddy, right? Sometimes the muddiness itself can be used as an effect like that. Right. So that can also be used musically, but again you need to know how much give. But when I'm just playing this one note, the question I have for myself and for all of us is it really one frequency that we are talking about? Yeah, it is multiple frequencies. And what are those frequencies, you think? If this is the fundamental frequency F, what are the other frequencies hidden in there? The answer is there. So if F0 is the fundamental, then the other frequencies are the second, third, fourth, and so on and so forth, right? Now, why is then only the fundamental heard? Where are the other? Are we hearing them? Do you hear any high notes? Not a trick question. No, really, it's a low tone, right? But the fact of the matter is, those high frequencies are also there in the sound that you heard. Yeah. This is a pure tone. Make it louder. It's not very loud, but it's like a dial tone, right? You can hear it. This is a pure tone. The purest is also the most boring, as with everything. Right? There is really no character to it. If you listen to a sound wave, you can also try the tuning forks that we have in our physics labs. Those are supposed to produce almost a pure tone. And if you look at the if you look at the waveform on an oscilloscope or a spectrometer, you'll just see a nice sine wave, right? Have you seen this? Right. So that would be just in fact, when you get into higher and higher frequencies, even in a flute, you see the shrillness goes up. It stops being, you can actually even see that in vocalists. The higher the pitch of the vocalist, the less, not even control, the less musical it seems to sound. It sounds shrill. It's almost like it hurts you when you go. It may be a good parlor trick, but really singing in a very high note gets a little too difficult to bear. It's not musical. And the reason behind it is that in most of these systems, this sort of generators rather, our ears and our brains are tuned to a range. Of course, there is an auditory range. We can only hear upwards of 50 hertz, and then it caps out around about 10,000? 20,000, thank you. 10,000 when you start hitting your 40s, I think. That is the sweet spot in human perception that sounds nice to us. A lot of this is related to also intrinsically how we have communicated using sounds, right? Because music and language, it is theorized that they co-evolved. There has been a long history, millennia of co-evolution. It is also very difficult to tell which came first. Coming back to the math of this. Now, what happens is when you have a musical note, there is a layering of frequencies to it. There is a component of F0 which dominates when I play the lowest note. It dominates as in it has the most amplitude, right? It has the most energy. What goes into a musical sound, right? The math of it. If you break it down, that's not obviously a frequency, the F0 that we started with, but it's not a frequency, it's a symphony of frequencies. So in a way, poetically speaking, every note, every musical note is a symphony in itself. It is already doing a harmony of sorts. It is just that we don't necessarily consciously perceive it as multiple notes and multiple sounds. Right? Duration is how long, of course, the note is being played. The direction, which means where is the panning coming from? Am I playing it here or there? So this is where the assembly of musicians in a symphony, in a kacheri, in a band makes a difference. The last thing about the musical note or the sound that comes out is the association. The note is never in isolation, right? That's not music. In Sanskrit, there is a lagu guru relationship, a short long relationship between the letters or the syllables, okay, in a sentence, and they make a perfect count. So there has to be, for example, 24 syllables in a line. When you answer a question using the question itself. That is the ultimate name of the sequence. In general, when you define something using itself. Recursion. Yeah, very good. It's called recursion. It's called self-reference, and it occurs a lot in nature, right? And that's why this sort of result, the Meru here, is actually quite interesting because it was rediscovered many times.